I've never done whole parts.
Oh, they take little tiny pieces. There won't even be a scar.
I think I found the problem.
Come on, you're the doctor.
Everyone, lights out and quiet.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Media Morgue, where movies come to be examined. I'm Justin Winley, joined by my fellow surgeons of cinema.
Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic.
I never have something clever to say here. My name is Zach Palomo. Thank you.
I am Jerome. I went to LaGuardia like these fine gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks. You know what the deal is. Each episode we review two movies, one that's popular, either by release or general knowledge, and another one that's a bit more faded, foreign, or forgotten, and we try to find a connecting thread between them so you feel more comfortable about broadening your cinematic horizons. Today's films we're starting with Selah and the Spades, which came out in 2020, directed by, oh man, I should have had her name ready. Tayarisha Poe, I believe.
Tayarisha Poe. Yep.
And starring Lovie, Simone, Jharrel, Jerome, and Celeste. It's great to have one of the stars on the show. Thanks for coming in, Jharrel. And we're following that up with Danny's pick for today, the French crime thriller Haine, directed by Mathieu Kassovitz in the second segment. But before the reviews, we have the news. So what have we all brought to share today? Let's start with you, Dan.
So Resident Evil 8, I mean, it's so far the fastest selling game in the series, which is cool because this has been a franchise that's been around for 20 years. It's spanned comics, movies, games, I mean, you name it, and it's still continuing to pick up traction. It's actually been doing really well recently. There's kind of been this Resident Evil renaissance with the remakes of 2 and 3. Obviously, the shift to first-person survival horror. This one has, in my opinion, the scariest moment in a Resident Evil game, and like besides that, it's all like an action game. It's really weird. It's like they condensed all the hardcore like scary moments into like one 15-minute segment. Overall, I think it's really cool how after so much time in this like zombie universe, we can move over the vampires and werewolves and stuff. And it was the same thing that the 7th game does, where near the end, it kind of all connects into the initial outbreak from the first 3 games. I appreciated that. Carries over really cool stuff from the 4th game, the same merchant system, storage system. I finished it 2 nights ago. Thought it was excellent. None of these games are really that long. We might do a review on the show, maybe not. I mean, stay tuned. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've talked about obviously eventually branching out to TV and video game reviews. It's just a matter of how we break it down. But definitely stay tuned. So it's a short narrative then. It's a short.
It is, yeah. It's about 10 hours long. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's very detailed. There's a lot of different ways to approach like every situation. Lots of replayability. Yeah. Excellent game. Really good.
I'm pretty early in it myself, but I've been playing it for about 2 days now, like just a few like 2-hour stretches here and there, and
so you came
I'm having a good time.
The goth mommy, is that right?
I did.
Yes.
I've killed her.
I was at work. And I saw someone just watching that cutscene. They weren't playing. Yes, they were just watching the cutscene.
It's cool.
And I was like, "How horny do you have to be?" We were at work.
The devs were very horny. The devs were. I'll say this. Her and her daughters, everything they say to you is heavily like BDSM coded.
Yeah.
They're all so the part where you're like in the dungeon and you're seeing like all the torture devices and stuff, and one of the daughters comes after you and she's like, "What toys do you like?" Like just like lines like that.
Yeah. Nice. You don't want to be my plaything. Yeah. They keep calling it man thing. It's yeah. The whole thing is very it's very
like
dominated.
Step on me. Yeah. Exactly.
I for me, my experience so far has been interesting because I've had a lot of bad experiences with first person games. I think it's just ultimately not the way I like to play.
Was it Alien Isolation that turned you off? Not to interrupt you.
Well, from horror specifically, but even before that, when I was a kid, I had the Peter Jackson King Kong movie video game for GameCube.
Oh boy!
And the human sections were in first person. Yeah, so it's horrific because the controls were just like wonky, and you're fighting these giant scorpions and centipedes that you can't see until you turn around. It's like, so that kind of turned me off from it, and then I kind of made my way back with some shooters here and there. Ultimately, I just don't love the lack of maneuverability. But with Resident Evil, I think, like you said, because Alien Isolation, I just couldn't play. I was too scared.
Yeah.
With Resident Evil 8.
Shit. Dude, I don't know if you remember this. IGN, the review for that game, they like tanked it. They gave it like a 5 or a 4 or something. And they said like they're impressed by how well made it was and like how smart the AI and shit is. But like the AI is too smart and it's too hard. The review literally said it's too fucking hard and he tanked the score. You have to play that shit on like baby mode to outsmart the AI. The AI was that advanced.
Yeah. And so Resident Evil is cool because the self-defense mechanics are kind of more viable. Like you can actually fight back. In Alien Isolation, you're hiding for the whole thing.
Now, Justin, how brave would you say you are playing this? How brave? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your bravery? Yeah,
I would say I'm like at a 7 or 8. I'm stressed more than I'm scared. Like there's just always something after you.
Ball thing, you know, it's always been goofy. It's just like a silly.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot for the horror games to keep me in like a closet.
Like I said, there is one segment here where I was actually really surprised at how scary it was. But aside from that, it's the same like Resident Evil horror. It's like goofy. You're shooting monsters and stuff.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, sticking in the fantasy lane, Wes, what's A24's next piece?
So Green Knight was delayed 1 year. I believe it's a David Lowery directed film starring Dev Patel. As a kid, I loved King Arthur. I loved Dev Patel too. As a kid, I loved King Arthur. So like, this is really my bag. I don't know. It looks like it's going to be a reinvention of the I believe you pronounce it Gawain and the Green Knight, which is one of the Arthurian sub legends. You know, the way Lancelot is one, the way Galahad is one. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this is concerning King Arthur's nephew, and the nephew is played by Dev Patel. What's interesting about this is it looks like it's actually going to break with Arthurian legend in that they're going to kill off King Arthur and make Dev Patel the king by the end of the film or something. Or at least that seems to be a central conflict in the film. And that seems very interesting. It also looks very gothic and weird. And, you know, I rag on A24. I love the marketing. We rag on A24 a lot in this podcast, but I think when I
rag on A24 fans. I
rag on A24 a lot on this podcast, but I think this looks really creative. And if they're like, this is the kind of stuff I want to see from like indie film places, like taking old stuff and kind of.
I love the story of the Green Knight. Have you read the?
Yeah. Of course, it's really
cool.
It's very, very
well. So first thing I wanted to say is that there's a couple things. One, I'm really excited. Two, the actor, I didn't know he was playing King Arthur. I didn't know this was related to Camelot Tales, but Sean Harris, such a distinctive voice that guy has. Like, as soon as he started speaking in the trailer, I was like, is that who I think it is? It's this very raspy, reedy voice. That's the guy from Mission Impossible.
Yes, okay, good. That's what I thought.
He played Lane, and he was also in this Macbeth movie that came out in 2015. He was Macduff.
I didn't see it.
But it's great. But so is the story that like maybe Danny, this is a question for you, but like, do you have to fight this Green Knight like once a year until one of you dies, or
he cuts off like the giant's head and stuff? I haven't read the myth in a long time, but it seems to be doing like an alternate history take on it, where it's like you're supposed to know the myth going in, and then it kind of like upends it. But I mean, not to spoil a movie that's a year away.
Oh no, it's now it's 3 months.
Oh, okay, never mind. Not spoil a movie 3 months away.
Because that's what it kind of looks like. I mean, we see Dev Patel age throughout the trailer, and I'm wondering if it's a thing where like now that he's killed the knight once, he has to keep doing it until he loses, and then it passes on to someone else.
Wow.
Which is kind of a cool. That'd be a cool setup. It's also interesting how different this trailer is from the first one. The first one was really selling the horror of it, and this is much more like mythical and grand. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about this is also like. I don't really love Robert Eggers' work. I think he's very talented.
Really?
I just don't connect to it. I think I can look at the craft and be like, this is great.
Do you like The Lighthouse?
I think The Lighthouse is a great film. I wouldn't watch The Lighthouse again. Okay. But this looks along the same.
I've seen it 6 times.
This looks like the same lane, which is like taking old myths and actually not. You know, I think before this kind of wave of like prestige horror, like the way we'd do period pieces is we try to show respect to it or make it seem prestigious, and it seems like these films like Robert Eggers and also this seem to be pulling out the horror out of those old myths, which is always there but often gets sanded down
Yeah.
Exactly, for kids to make it palatable.
The
Right.
A24 merch store is selling like a Green Knight board game for like
Oh wow, of course.
$100
Oh,
or something.
good.
Cool.
It's like they're known for their expensive merch.
Do they make
didn't
movies or
disappoint
do they
this
just
time.
sell merch?
They sell shirts that have the words A24 on them. That's what they're meant for.
I love that.
Zach, what's your bit?
Yes, I am bringing in the Stranger Things season 4 teaser. That
Can
was
you
just,
believe it?
I keep forgetting that it's coming because I stopped caring. And I feel like most people have.
Every time they bring out a new season, I'm like, that's still happening.
Exactly.
Wasn't that like a mid series from the beginning, and they just have to keep coming up with like ways to
You
make
bet.
more seasons?
You bet.
Probably, yeah.
Every
And
season felt like that. It's like they kept trying to justify why there's a new season every couple of years.
yeah, and it's just, I think the last teaser that they released, which I feel like was like over a year ago, immediately spoiled like the biggest question that everyone had following season 3, but also already knew the answer to. Right.
Yeah.
That spoiler alert: Hopper, David Harbour, is still alive. He's in Russia. We all kind of knew that.
Okay.
That was the first thing they teased.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. So after that, I'm like, okay, I really don't care anymore. I know he's alive. So great.
Well, they all the way at the end of season 3.
Sorry?
There was an after credit scene where we see the Demogorgon chained up in a Russian prison, and then they're like, "What about the Americans? So and so, the American." Like, it's heavily, who else would they be talking about?
Right. And so this teaser focuses in on Eleven's origin story again because we still need it on the 4th season. Thank you very much. And it also brings back the Papa character that he was like the director of her facility or whatever. That I think they. Yes, exactly. That like you thought assumed died because the Demogorgon like jumped on him and then
destroyed
it
his
cut away.
life. Yeah.
It killed him, but they're like, nah, he's still alive. And it's like, I don't care. And also, no, he's not. He shouldn't be after that. But they're teasing that he still is alive. So that's
Matthew Modine.
Matthew Modine. So they're bringing back him, maybe, I guess. And who cares? That's where Stranger Things is.
I enjoyed that first season, but like Stranger Things was one of those big indicators of like us reaching a saturation point with the whole 80s
nostalgia
like, obsession nostalgia thing. Yeah,
it's Goonies meets Twin Peaks meets
E.T.
Meets Poltergeist,
Yeah, all those things just
they've
kind
done
of
everything
globbed together. Yeah,
Well,
meets Harry Potter.
It's also like, and I forgive me for always being the X-Men guy, but it's also just
it also is X-Men,
it's them attempting to make X-Men without using X-Men.
Well, Wes, you know what's funny about that is there was a show. Okay, I'm gonna need to pick on a few of you to help me put this together. Zach, what is you remember from It? Well, we've all seen It, I'm sure, but the girl who played young Beverly, the redheaded chick, what was that actress's name? Do you know?
Oh boy,
she should have been the breakout star of that.
Oh boy,
she was great,
wasn't she?
Theoretically,
I didn't see her in anything else.
She's like in a bunch of things now.
She was in a show.
Well, this is what I'm bringing up.
Sophia Lillis.
Thank you, because she was cast in this Netflix show that was like about a suburban teenager who gains telekinetic powers.
I hate everything.
And I remember seeing a tweet that was like, "It is the inevitable like fate of the human race to like recreate X-Men every 4 years or something like that."
But it's always the weird.
That's like a winning formula.
But it's what we always talk about. It's kids with telekinetic powers,
Yes.
which is what we talked about before. But also like they always are trying to do Dark Phoenix Saga. Like that's always the thing they're going for. Like I remember when Stranger Things season 1 came out, and there was an article that was just paralleling Dark Phoenix Saga to the first season, and it was pound for pound very similar. And it was like, guys, there are other X-Men. If you're gonna rip off X-Men, do something else, please. Please rip something else off. I beg.
I want to go back to what you said, Zach, about them doing the 11 origin story. Do you guys remember? This was season 2, I think. They had a 11 meet up with the other like test subjects, teenage sisters. It was like a really weird episode. Where they're like driving around, getting into mischief and stuff. And apparently that was to test a potential spin-off series. But people really didn't respond to it.
It's not a good episode.
It was terrible.
reactions on social media were like, "Why is this here? I don't care about this."
That was like them trying to do Lost Boys. Like they were like, let's stop the story that's happening
Lost
for an
Boys is
hour.
sick.
Lost Boys, I've heard.
We gotta bring that on.
But yeah, I mean, Stranger Things is so strange because Stranger Things is so weird because I'm gonna keep watching it.
Stranger Things.
I'm gonna keep watching it, but also like, what else is there to like? What else is there to do?
If another big show comes out at the same time, I will like forget about Stranger Things and not engage.
Almost certainly. Yeah.
Every time it comes out, it's like I just don't have anything else to watch, and it's like I'm caught up. Like, why not just watch Stranger Things?
I always feel like they should have, and they're not going to do it because of money. But what they should have done was done the first 2 seasons and then time jumped, like allowed 5 years to pass and they kids to grow up.
I'd love to see them as adults.
I think I said that to one of y'all, probably Zach.
Probably not.
I thought like season 2 would be like the 90s, season 3, the 2000s. By now,
they could have done to Stranger Things what they were doing to the X-Men,
except actually
recast them.
But then actually recast or age them up. Yeah.
Remember when Fassbender was playing a 60-year-old man? And,
I hate everything. I hate everything about this.
I think at one point they expect you to forget that there was an original continuity and just like
you can't.
Yeah. As a last bit of news from me, sticking in the superhero lane,
let's go.
There was a trailer released for Venom. Let There Be Carnage.
Hey.
We are getting our first cinematic representation of Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, on the big screen ever. Can y'all believe that? It's the first time we've seen Carnage.
And who's playing him again, Justin? Please.
Woody Harrelson. No, but here's the interesting thing about it is that apparently the director of the first film, Ruben Fleischer, wanted to cast Woody Harrelson ever since seeing him in Natural Born Killers. He thought that he would be a good Cletus, and I mean.
And he waited as long as he possibly could.
And I haven't seen Natural Born Killers, but he plays like a mass murderer in that, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, I was.
I like him.
He's Woody Harrelson's a great actor.
He's great.
And I think that I was saying, in the group chat that like this is it's the type of choice that would only be made for that reason. Like, the director really wanted him because Woody Harrelson doesn't like sell movies. You know what I mean? He's not. He's a character actor that's like,
and he's underappreciated.
If you're into movies, you like him. But do you remember, Dan, when or really any of you, when the popular fan cast was Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Yeah. That would have been an interesting bit of stunt casting, and it might actually go because the rest of this trailer is like. And Justin, you said this is probably just cutting because they realized that the first Venom movie, people love that as a gonzo comedy. So like they've really front loaded this trailer with comedy. And if it's Jim Carrey, I think people would love it. They'd be like, whatever. It is what it is. I heard he's great as a fake Mr. Rogers in that HBO show, whatever. No, but Jim Carrey has the old Adam Sandler thing where like they're secretly incredible actors, like on the DL.
Yeah. Well, a lot of comedic actors are really powerful dramatic performers, and it just shows you that like really the only difference between comedy and drama is perception. If you go into something and you're told that it's a comedy, then like even though the situation is actually pretty serious,
even though you're hit by a car, you laugh at them.
Yeah, exactly. So Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I think it could be entertaining. The actual design of Carnage is
interesting.
I'm wondering about it. I mean, he looks like he looks like the comic book.
He looks like the Cates version of. He looks like the Cates version of Carnage, the new one that just happened in the comics, where he's like really stringy and like red and like wiry. He kind of looks like that.
I just felt like, okay, you have this villain whose iconicism is in his bright red color, but then you put him in this super dark scene, so you can barely even tell that he looks red unless you like. I feel like if I showed this to someone who didn't know that's supposed to be Carnage, they'd be like, why is that? Who is that?
He was very muddy. He was very muddy.
Yeah. So hopefully they up the saturation.
Yeah. I've already brought this up, but you guys remember that climax in the first movie, right? Where it's just another black goofy thing fighting him.
A gray silver
guy.
It's on the edge. You can't tell who is who. You can't tell what they're doing or how they're
doing. It's on the edge. You guys are going to be shook when I make Venom one of the popular picks here.
It's going to have to happen. It's September, it'll have to happen. But I think that does it for our news updates. We'll take our first break of the episode and come back with Selah and the Spades.
Listen, Lovie Simone, if you're free this Friday, I'm also free this Friday. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but like I have 2 jobs I can provide. I just want to know.
Yeah, he's taking time off from saving dogs and children from burning buildings and stuff. Wes, I'm gonna bring you.
Yeah, hey Wes, thank you for lending me.
Ferrari.
No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And
He
you
let me borrow that as well.
Work. How long have you been working out?
I just
right?
just years. You know,
It's natural
He
too.
got ice cubes on his bicep earlier. I was
Yeah,
like, damn,
it
it
was a lot. It
Wes.
was a lot. But you know, no pressure. But like Friday, if you're free.
I was shredding cheese in his washboard ass. All right, cool.
Yeah, so we're talking Selah and the Spades, which stars Lovie Simone. It's directed by Tayarisha, also written by her, and it co-stars Celeste O'Connor, Jharrel Jerome, Gina Torres, and Jesse Williams. The film was released, made its world premiere at Sundance in 2019, but then it was released on Amazon in 2020. Dan, what would you say this movie's about?
Yeah, so I mean, these private school kids, listen, man, they're getting into mischief. All right, you can't trust them.
Hey.
They're selling drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Oh my God, you've driven yourself the cliff.
They're not bringing their best.
Yeah, they're not bringing the best. That main character is pretty compelling. She's like a sociopathic, like perfectionist,
like Michael Corleone.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is
Yeah.
a retelling of The Godfather.
It is
in a lot of ways.
It is, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we can get into initial impressions now. Well, yeah, Dan, you already kind of started, but if you have any more to say,
I will say that third act really surprised me because I became really engaged, and prior to that, I love slow stuff, and I was digging the slow pacing at first. After a while, I got kind of bored. The whole middle section of the movie was like hard for me to really get invested. I mean, you could see where it was going, but it still like took a while to get there. And then once it finally got to where you were waiting for it to get to, it like ends right as it starts. Like for me, that final scene is like that was like the crescendo, and I wanted to see like another half hour of stuff they built up from there. Like she looks really remorseful for what she's done. She looks like she's about to jump off that cliffside and like commit suicide and stuff. And I was like, this is compelling. Like, what's the relationship going to be like moving forward? Like, are people still going to respect her? What's going to happen? But it ends like seemingly as it just begins, which is strange because it takes such a long time to get there.
It is getting a TV show.
Really, like we're the same characters?
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, really?
So it's not a retelling; it's continuing.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was that?
I mean, Justin, we've talked about this. It's getting a TV show spinoff. We don't know what the content of that TV show will be.
I actually didn't know that.
It'll be like a Dear White People.
This is based on a.
Well, that's interesting.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's original.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting because it reminded me a lot while watching. It reminded me a lot of Dear White People, which also got a TV spinoff,
but with an almost entirely new cast. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it kept like some of the supporting actors, but Tessa Thompson was too expensive, and so that they kind of went from there. But that's interesting. I mean, I can see why they do that. You have these factions set up, and there's kind of like material there to mine if you want. Zach?
Yeah, I was actually gonna. I think that's interesting that they're making a TV show because I thought that we were gonna see a lot more of the factions like doing their stuff. Like I just kind of had to believe, I guess, that the prefix do their job. Like I didn't see like any evidence that the prefix are like out here deflecting teachers away from the criminal underground of the student body. I liked it. I thought it was gonna be a certain kind of movie when it started. As soon as like I understood what the factions were, I was like, okay, here we go. It's gonna be a fast-paced, like like heist kind of movie. And it so wasn't, and I appreciated that. Like it's still, there's a lot of like, this does still feel like high school. There's, you know what I mean? Like I love how consumed they are with like stuff like prom and whatnot. Like, they're running freaking businesses out here, and they're still like bummed out when prom is taken away because they were bad. The pacing, I liked it at first, like you said. Like I appreciated how they were taking the time to make this a character study. And then sometimes I wish it moved maybe a tiny bit quicker, focused a little more on the actual different jobs that these factions had. but I still really enjoyed it. It didn't go where I kind of assumed it was gonna go. I also agree that maybe I wanted I wanted more once it ended, but also that could be a good thing. You know what I mean? You leave the audience wanting more instead of being like, okay, it was too much.
Yeah.
But I thought there were some great moments between the actors. I really love the way that Selah and Paloma play off each other in some scenes. Like there's a Macbeth scene that in this on the stage that I loved. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
And the set design. Did you guys notice how they got so much usage out of mirrors?
Yeah.
And just like that one stage set where it's like the borders are like ribbons, just little like ribbons.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that
and stuff. This DP was super.
Very cool.
Made
And
really
production
and the art designer.
Yeah, Wes, go ahead.
So I watched this the first time in quarantine because a bunch of my homegirls from school really loved it, and they said it was a high school movie. I didn't know what it was about, so I kind of came in just knowing Lovie, Simone, and Jerome were in it, and it was a high school thing. And the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is good." I was like, "This is a good film." And the second time I watched it this morning, I really loved it. I think I don't know. It's such a weird movie. It's like such a weird idea for a movie, which is like essentially The Godfather in a high school, and that's such a strange pitch, but it's a cool pitch. It's a cool pitch, but it's like a weird pitch. Like I can't even think of how that would work in my head if I hadn't seen the movie. But I think it really works. I think the three actors at the center are good. Obviously, they're like the three highest working Black young actors right now, so like they're great. I think the cinematography, I agree, is amazing. I think there's a point like around the midpoint where Selah is sitting in that chair surrounded by the red ribbons, and it becomes very clear that this is like not just like a high school movie, but it's like a Succession movie. You know what I mean? Like it's about and like all the references to Macbeth all over the movie. It's like it's clear that this is a movie that's unpretentiously attempting to be a reimagining of that kind of idea of like, what do you do when like the king is getting old and they have to pick a successor? But like the interesting thing about it is like you have a character who's self-destructive, like who can't allow someone to be better than them, and like that's uniquely like Black kid problem. But that's also like a uniquely like Shakespearean problem. You know what I mean? So I think the movie is firing on a lot of things, and I think it's a lot of fun. It is a slow start, but I think once it starts to, you start to realize what the game it's playing.
Like I've said before,
it starts to heat up.
A lot of the time I actually prefer slower pace.
You do, and I usually don't, so it's strange.
You start to feel like you're there and you're experiencing things and like the beat and rhythm of real life.
What I will say though is I think if it does get a TV show, which I hope it does.
I thought you said it was like confirmed.
I think it. Things are confirmed, and then they fall through. Amazon bought a TV show apparently for it. We don't know what the TV show is going to be or if it's going to go through. This was pre-pandemic when it was bought. So like, if the TV show ends up going through, I'm interested in how immersive it can get. You know what I mean? Like I'm interested in how immersive in this world it can be. So
hopefully it can make those other factions more interesting, because I thought the Bobbies and like the leader of the Bobbies, that was so like,
you don't
annoying.
Like theater kids? You don't like theater kids?
Her character, like every scene with her, I was just like, can we move on? Like she
was a lot. She was a lot.
But let's be clear about something, because Zach was like, oh, we should play a mini game about what faction we'd be in. We would all be Bobbies, right? Like that. We're all theater kids at one point.
We're theater kids.
I would not take.
If we had a choice, maybe we wouldn't be. But if the question is where would we end up,
I don't think I would even end up as a theater kid. I'm not a theater kid, and I stand by that.
Zach, we were in a theater show together in high school.
In like the way, right? Like you do theater, but like theater kids have like a decorum to the way they,
No, they have their own thing.
Thank you.
I was totally one of like the annoying theater kids in high school. I just want to say I was annoying as fuck, like singing tunes from Hairspray and stuff, and like doing the whole thing. So I mean, this is very hypocritical, but
I actually think I'd be with the guy with the dreads who's just nebulously moving between He's just like, what is he
Tarot?
do? What does he
Tarot,
stop?
Yeah, the sea. That's the one I thought I would join because I think. Oh wait, should I say this on this podcast? There were a couple times where I did some homeworks and assignments for people for some gifts. But,
me too.
Hey,
me too.
I did.
Wow.
Hey now, man.
I did a girl's final for her entire final project. She paid me $700.
Oh wow!
I did it was worth like 20% of her grade. They did the whole fucking thing for her.
Wow.
In like a weekend.
Wow.
I bullshit.
That shows me up.
I did a better grade on that final than I did on my own final.
But that money.
Yeah, and I worked on mine for like a month. I did hers in 2 days, and it got a higher score.
$700.
Whatever.
I did it for like Hershey's bars.
Was this movie based on you?
Yeah. She for the rest of my life. So.
Before we go through some of the movie's moments, just as far as my initial impressions,
$700.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
just in terms of my initial impressions, I went into the movie expecting a certain tone that I didn't get. Like I actually thought the movie was going to be more like, I guess, self-serious. I mean, it is like serious about itself, but I guess what I was expecting something, I guess, a bit more about like, okay, the Black experience at this private school, which it's not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily comment on race directly, even though a lot of the relationships are and obviously like the pressure that Selah feels from her mother. Played by Gina Torres, who it's always nice to see.
Always
in stuff.
That story of the scorpion and the
frog. Yeah,
Chilling,
it's an
bro.
Aesop fable.
I was quoting that like as she was saying it because I read that in a picture book when I was really young in elementary school.
Yeah. I think it's an Aesop fable.
Yes.
Kind of.
And
it's not really a good.
It means don't trust people.
but
Don't trust
exactly.
people.
Well, what you see is what you get. Is what it teaches you.
Yeah, right. And it makes you think like, who's the scorpion? You know, is Selah the scorpion?
Selah,
Or
right?
is she implying that?
The answer is yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm okay with my daughter being a scorpion.
Because she thinks that college will like save her soul. Like she's like, there's evil inside of you, and college will save you.
Or
I think it's
college will put a wall. I'm sorry, Justin. College will put a wall around you so you don't drug your friends.
But I did I liked a lot of moments. I loved how it's the DP the cinematography, I should say.
It's very well
really strong. The production design is great. All those college dorms feel like real college dorms, especially Selah's. It feels like she's been there for 3-4 years. I do think it's we were talking about the danger of adults in teen movies last week, and I think it's interesting that like this movie simultaneously casts adults as like inept, but also as it's not interested in them like even that much at all, because like Jesse Williams I was expecting to see a lot more throughout the movie as the principal, because he's the new headmaster who's going to change things, but there's never even like a confrontation between him and Selah,
I think
which is kind of one of the things that you're waiting for.
I think he thought that he was going to be a bigger character than he ended up being.
Ultimately, I think that the movie is very ambitious with its themes and what it places on these young actors, to varying efficacy. There's some like acting tics that kind of like annoy me. Like there's a lot of like scoffing in this movie, like while people are saying, which is like, I mean, that's a nitpick, but I think that there was also some stuff that I didn't expect to happen at all. And like there are places I didn't expect the movie to go, so it's a very unpredictable movie, and I think that's part of what makes it so entertaining. So I enjoyed it.
If we're just talking about the acting, the main thing that stuck out to me was who's that actress that plays the second lead?
Celeste O'Connor.
She was not selling a bad acid trip like at all. She just looked like lost and confused and like wandering. It's like, dude, you would be panicking. You would hardcore be panicking. You
was
would
it
be
acid?
like, she pours a bunch of. It's like a good time in the Sprite
drops,
bottle.
yeah.
She pours it in
Interesting. When she puts those...
like, one drop of that is like what you put in a tab. That's enough to like kill someone. And she's just kind of like,
and it almost
She's like 4.
Yeah, it almost does kill her.
There's 2 times it happens, right? Because there's early when they go to that first rave party with the masks. She just takes like a tab, I think, willingly, and then she's kind of panicking in that, like someone picks her up and she's like, "Who is this? Put me down." But yeah, toward the finale, and intentional effort by Selah. Spoiler warning, by the way, we're dropping it now. Gonna start unpacking this narrative in full. And I have the plot summary up here, just to refer to, but we can speak freely about it. One of the things I wanted to ask y'all about, because I obviously, like, we've already talked about what the second movie is today, is Haine, but I was thinking a lot about the connections that these movies have, and like the idea of privilege is really interesting between both these movies. I want to save some of this for when we get to the second movie, but like here you have these kids who are extremely privileged, right, through the fact that they're like they're educationally privileged, they have knowledge, they have a certain, either through scholarship or just independent financial class, and there's also this social status, right? But they go out of their way to simulate the environment of non-privilege, you know what I mean, in order to feel autonomous and like independent, which is a really interesting thing. And it does feel pretty it feels real, because like we've all been to high school with people who like don't really, especially when we talk about drugs, which obviously is a fraught subject, but like a lot of times people are exposed to that through socioeconomic situations that like it just falls into their lap. But there's a lot of people who get into hardcore drugs that like are well-to-do, you know what I mean? And like they only find that because they seek it out.
It's so that they can have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
also
exactly.
Kind of drugs, the kind of like I think that's a great point, Justin. And I wanted to bring up another film that probably will eventually end up on the morgue, because it's one of my favorite new films. But like Loose is very similar to this one, the 2019 film with Kelvin Harrison Jr. But the idea of like films that are exploring Black kids who are in a place of privilege through whatever means that happens. It seems like Selah is independently wealthy, at least by the look of her house. But in that film, it's like he was adopted into a white family, and the white family is wealthy. So it's like, but having all this privilege and giving it to a Black kid, what that does to them, you know what I mean? And these two films seem to suggest that it's not a great situation, you know what I mean? Especially when the parents, at least Selah's mom, is extremely domineering and wants to essentially create a perfect human out of her, you know what I mean? So I think that's an interesting point, Justin, and like the idea that she, I don't know, it's almost like her privilege makes her less human, you know what I mean? Like she almost cuts off certain human valves in her to continue to be able to move the way she wants to move. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was watching this with a group, and one of the things that came up is how, like, she is willing to enable others around her to partake in these drugs, in this illicit activity, but she won't do it herself, which is like, that has a few layers to it. Because on the one hand, it's like, well, don't try your own supply, right? Like, and I'm not going to taint my image, but also it's like I'm too good for this anyway, you know what I mean? And or maybe there's some fear there too, like I mean, for someone who's so she's so focused on having control over things, like the idea of being out of control for any period of time is probably
makes
like
her murderous.
Yeah, exactly. So getting drunk, getting high, all that kind of stuff, I think she's and it's interesting, like following this sociopath train, right? If we're trying to pathologize her, like someone who's so methodical about the way that she does what she does, she probably wouldn't want to like mess with her mind, because that's her most powerful weapon.
This is the moment that Selah became Heisenberg.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I think also like a thing about it, and that we're kind of moving off like the way we usually do these, but the idea that she needs someone that is as good as her, as ruthless as her, to replace her, but she can't handle but she can't handle that person actually existing. Like she needs that person to exist, but she cannot handle the existence of that person, and like that creates a problem. It's right, and it creates a problem in the movie that the movie can't solve, which is a good thing, because that's what keeps us interested in the film.
Exactly. Which is what they imply went on with Tila, right? The girl who got expelled from Haldwell because she was like I think she was framed basically, like they planted drugs on her, but then also there
And
was like
drugged
a
her.
car crash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
and
gave her
drugged her so
acid.
that
Yeah.
right. And yeah, it's a really fascinating relationship that Selah has with a lot of these other characters. For example, Maxie, played by Jerome, her right hand man. What did you guys think about? I thought he was a pretty interesting character, not in this movie as much as I thought he was going to be, but he probably had one of my favorite performances.
Yes.
Or and my favorite roles in the film, and I love that confrontation between him and Selah right before
Towards the end?
Yes, right before she fires him.
That's his best moment.
Yeah, for sure. Because you're kind of waiting, like, I think you're waiting the whole movie for someone to like challenge Selah, and like, because you know that she's passing along this abuse from her mother. That's a big thing as well. Like, she's getting it from her mom, and she's then turning it on everybody else. But you're waiting for someone to step to her and to like make her kind of feel the way she's making everybody else feel. And I think he comes the closest to doing that. You know, because she can just kind of walk all over Paloma, because of the admiration that Paloma has for her, and also the potential attraction that's heavily implied and manipulated by Selah, I think, to get her to do what she wants. You know, blackmailing certain people. But yeah, how did y'all feel about Maxie's character, his arc? You know, any notable?
Well, like you said, it's satisfying that someone would step up to Selah and kind of subtly like detach from her more and more. I think towards the end it shows he's compelling because it shows that he does care about her and he cares about Paloma. And I mean, they are, you know, kind of a unit. I mean, they're going in separate ways, but I mean, at their core, they really care about each other. It's an effective ending, and I think each character arc kind of completes in a way that's satisfying and emotional.
I agree.
There's entire chunks of the movie where he's like not really doing much. I guess that's the only thing I really have to say. Like, that's like not that strong about the writing of his character. Just that they don't use him as much, like towards
the way that he could be.
We don't see him. I think the one thing is we don't see him. We see him when we enter the story. He's already messing up, and I think we could have used a little bit of time of him just cooking, so we can see how he's a match for her and how they've been able to forge a partnership. I mean, we see it a little at the beginning. In the first scene, we kind of see them together, and then after that first scene, they begin to apart.
I forgot that Jerome was in the movie because there's such like. There's like huge chunks where he's like not doing anything and like he doesn't show up, and it's like, oh, he's in this. He shows up.
Yeah, I thought he was gone. I really thought like he was out of the movie when she fired him, and I was like, oh, that's interesting for this movie to just imply that he has vanished once he is ostracized from the Spades. Like, he doesn't even exist anymore. But
which could have been a choice.
Which could have been and I thought that could have been cool because it's just like, again, you're in this environment that's like that doesn't quite feel real just because of how seriously they take this like criminal underground. But
it's very heightened.
Exactly, it's very heightened, but I love it. But you know, so I thought that completely, you know, taking him out of the movie once he's fired could have been interesting. So you really feel that absence, and it's like, yes, he's still at the school, but it feels like he's not anymore just because he's not. You know, she fired him.
And like we only see him in the background, like looking over his shoulder to see what they're doing.
Yeah,
walking off. You know, shots
exactly.
Like
he's just like all of a sudden he's just an NPC. But yeah, I liked him coming back. Yeah, I thought that was cool. Just like I love their confrontation when she's like, how many would it theoretically take to like mess someone up? And she's like,
that's great. Yeah.
How many did you give?
That's maybe the strongest move in the entire movie.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way he looks. Like I mean,
like I said, that third act is phenomenal.
We're a bit of a tainted party. I think Jerome is great. Like I think you can. He's one of those actors you can just drop into any. But I think you can drop.
He's really
him into,
good.
You can drop him into any movie, and he like kind of just clicks. Like he clicks in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's because he has there's so much going on in this movie where people are almost speaking in like verse, you know what I mean? Like they're speaking on such a high level, and then when he enters, he grounds the movie. Like he's essentially like the in-between man. You know what I mean? Like he goes between people, gives people drugs, so he has to kind of be a little bit more grounded. So when he enters the movie, whenever he shows up, which is why he might be used sparingly, he grounds it. Like he's very much like, I'm here, we're gonna figure this out. You know what I mean? Like he's very so, and I think he's great at it.
In a way, he also you know, with Selah's sort of clearly inflated ego and this like heightened sense of herself, like you said, to use him, the movie is like largely from, even though there's not like a narrator in this movie, it is kind of largely, I think, through her lens. It's the way that she sees.
She keeps looking at the camera.
Yeah, exactly. So she's in conversation with the audience. There's actually I don't know why this affected me so much, but the moment when I thought the movie was over, you know, when it cuts to black after she when is it after she is it after she fires him?
And I think it is. Camera at the,
she sits down in her room, and there's my heart jumped. Like there was, I don't know if I was jump scared by the cut to black or what, but like her looking at the camera, tears in her eyes, and then it cutting felt like such an effective way to, if that was the ending, to end the movie, because she just completely isolated herself. And you would have reached that point in the Macbeth type story where the king is alone because their paranoia has caused them to push everybody away. But it kept going, and it got into the third act, which I think builds on that. But yeah, I think that because it's through her point of view, it is more impactful when you have someone pull her down and say, no, you're actually not as hot as you think you are. You know what I mean? Yeah, I guess like one of the things that disappointed me a little bit is, like you said, Danny, waiting for some more kind of conclusion about her character. Like, has she actually learned from this, or is she just a little bit upset? Is she just upset that like
it failed? She
got caught. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, is it that I'm going to take my life because I feel bad about this and I'm a horrible person, or because I don't want anyone to find out that I did this? You know, I wanted to ask y'all about the as far as the like technical aspect of the film, how you feel about the way that it blends different cinematography styles, because there are sometimes that it's very
I meant to bring up earlier, we were talking about how impressive this DP's work was.
I just found the name too.
A part where actually, you know what, it is in the third act. It's when she's like running through the crowd, and you can't really tell what the light sources are, but she's kind of lit by an over the head angel light that illuminates the top of the hair and kind of gives her an outline and stuff. And it's a long lens from the ground up facing her, very long lens, very shallow depth of field.
Jomo Frey is the name of the DP.
Yeah, and she's like sprinting, she's running, and that's so hard to like keep up with someone like on the move with like a long lens like that. And that shot is super impressive. I mean, it's shaky, and there's parts where she like exits the frame entirely, but like it helps that scene so much. I
agree. I think
you feel like you're panicking with her.
Well, I think the blending of cinematography is really interesting, because you have these great scenes that happen, I guess, once an act where the characters address the camera, where they look at the camera and they address. Selah has that great one that was in the trailer where she talks about the Spades and the cheerleaders and all that, and then we have one where Jesse Williams is talking to the camera, and they're almost Barry Jenkins-esque. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, where
I was going to say like Michael Haneke, like Funny Games. I guess some Funny Games.
And those are
I have not.
And those are interesting interludes. And then you have the almost rough, handheld Steadicam stuff. Yeah, which becomes more prevalent in the last act. And then you have these compositions where you have like swirling staircases and like Selah's at the top of the staircase and like Celeste is at the bottom of it. You know what I mean? And I think it, in a lesser like director, editor, DP team's hands, it would feel weird. But it doesn't here to me, at least.
This is going to be the cinematography heavy episode because I have a lot to say about.
Oh, dude, forget about it with
it's all cinematography. That's all cinematography.
So much to say.
But it's interesting, yeah, because the movie is I had a thought that I was about to suggest that was just verified by this Wikipedia article when the director was talking about what inspired her to make the movie. This movie's come up before between you and me, Dan. La Jetée was one of her inspirations for it.
Really?
Yeah. And
La Jetée?
Yeah, and the movie is kind of nonlinear in certain ways. I mean, like, obviously there's a story that is a through line because as we're developing Paloma as a character and her relationship with Selah, we're getting to the conclusion of a story, but it's also like like there's no real sense of like when this is per se, either in time or like during, I guess, like a year, like what's, I mean, I guess it's like the fall. Yeah. Oh, they do say spring semester. Okay.
Justin, you're talking about the French time travel.
Yes, that the one and only La Jetée. Yeah.
I'm confused.
See, imagine the story of Selah being told through a variety of nonlinear media, a website of short stories, short films, music, and photographs, which together would tell a complete story.
Yeah. Oh, okay. In form.
Yeah. Not like in.
It was an early blend of stills and moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in narrative at all.
I was going to say, what, like time travel, and she sees her own death and stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Also the, I mean, I'm reading the same article Justin is. Apparently the original germ of the idea was to do this story through a bunch of different multimedia ideas and to blend them.
Oh, nice.
And then that became.
That's cool.
Oh wait, Wes, you weren't joking about this film being inspired by Rihanna. You were not.
No, it is,
Yeah.
and you can tell.
Yeah.
The greatest album of the 21st century, excuse me.
What's it inspired by?
Anti by Rihanna.
Oh.
Yeah, Rihanna's probably last ever album.
I would like you to stop. I would like you to stop on. Please.
I don't know, man. She's onto the makeup stuff. But yeah, I was.
She's so funny on Twitter. Every time someone's like, "Well, when are we gonna get news on the new album?" She's like,
Never.
"This is a new palette."
Yeah.
The best is like someone was interviewing her about Fenty, and they were like, "So when's the new album?" And she goes, "Where are you guys coming from?"
More on the cinematography here. Handheld camera shots are used near the end of the film to represent Selah's gradual loss of power.
Yeah.
For most of the film, the colors tend toward bluish to give it a cold feeling, but warm colors were chosen in moments where something unnatural is happening or there is deep violence entering into the space, such as when she makes Paloma
beat this
shit
out of that guy.
Just
smacks him over and over again.
Now this is one of those moments I was saying I was not expecting. Like I didn't know that the movie, when they were like, they're talking about like, you have to do this, like you can't run. I'm like, are you going to kill this man? Are you going to murder this student? But they just beat him up, which is I think an allegory for that anyway, a metaphor for that anyway. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to have, exactly.
He's dead
because we don't see him again in the movie. So he may as well be.
Yeah, I thought for a hot second that she like snapped and was punching Selah, like just for because that confrontation ends with like it feels like it's building to her turning on Selah. So for a split second I was like, she's gonna kill her, and the rest of the movie is gonna be about her covering up this crime. And so which would have been right, exactly. But it wasn't, and that's okay. She beat the freak out of that guy in the chair though.
Yeah. That guy, yeah.
I mean, maybe he deserved it.
He's a sophomore.
We shouldn't have talked.
Well, you know, all the stuff, I will admit, to what Danny was saying, maybe I was kind of tuning out in the first part because all this stuff about the ledger was in one ear and out the other. Like, I only vaguely understood that there was a problem, but not what the problem was. So
something's wrong.
Yeah, so like when
I didn't fully get the ledger until the second watch. Like I got that it was an entity that was floating around the film.
Yeah.
Is it not just their record book of like their sales?
I think of who's been selling to who and for what amounts.
Yeah. But it's Maxi's. Like Maxi is supposed to keep
and because
and then I guess they stole it as a prank.
Yeah.
Yes. And because he fell in love with Homegirl on the cheerleading team. Understandable. It's a beautiful person. But that distracted him, I guess, and that's part of. I was almost surprised that again, another scene that like I think could have been beneficial here was like if Selah had somehow like sabotaged that girl to like get Maxi back in the game. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That could have been an interesting thing as well.
Yeah. I was surprised. Sorry, go ahead, Wes.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I was actually surprised that Maxi's like demise came from a legitimate like accident. Like he was just like distracted. I thought it was gonna be a little more malicious, like that, like his new girlfriend kind of was able to sway him to, you know, betray Selah, even if he wasn't completely sure what he was doing. So I thought it was interesting that it legitimately was like I'm sorry, I was like talking to a person and they freaking stole it out of my backpack. And she's like, yeah, you're fired.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's cutthroat.
Well, it goes to show that he had been so reliant on her, and he had kind of been like running on autopilot while she pulls the strings.
Yeah.
I thought that was
and it also highlights again
her ruthlessness.
that domineering nature she's taking from her mother. There's no room for mistakes. The phone call we get early on, I got a 93 on my bio test. What happened to the other 7 points?
Dude,
which is a real conversation people have with their parents.
I've always hated like hearing shit like that, dude.
Oh.
Like that's not going to matter in the long run. What will matter is whether or not your kids like you.
Yeah.
You know?
Not to blow up my father, who I love on the podcast, but I remember being in middle school and my teacher said Wesley has a 91 in this class, and in my head I'm thinking,
hey,
that's great.
That's great.
And she goes, that's low for him.
What happened to that 9%?
She was like, no, she was like, that's pretty low for a student like him. And mind you, I wasn't doing well in any other classes. Like, I was lazy. And my dad on the way out was like where are the other points? Like,
and both your teachers are both your parents are teachers. Right?
Yeah.
So
it was nice. It was a nice thing for her to say because she knew I was going to get tormented for the rest of the
So gracious of her.
No, but it's a real thing, and I think that setting that up as Selah's setting that up early with Selah, that she needs to be perfect, like it's almost like a pathological need. Is an interesting way to go with the character.
Mistakes are worse than like legitimate betrayal. Sorry, that was it.
Yeah.
No. I was going to say I want to hit on the big unspoken thing before we have to wrap up this segment, which is like we were talking about it in chat, but like
coding?
I don't even think it's. I was rewatching it. I don't think it's coding. I think it's.
I thought that's where it was going.
I think it's meant. There's a scene where they wake up in bed together.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was meant to be that they were sleeping together, like literally biblically sleeping together. But I think the idea is, and I don't want to assign any kind of sexuality to the characters that they don't give themselves, but I think the idea is that Selah both is probably attracted to this girl romantically or whatever, but also needs someone who's exactly like her. Like she needs someone who's just like her. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird almost like neurosis thing where she likes this girl and we don't know as the audience if it's because she's attracted to her or if it's because she is like her. You know what I mean? Which is weird.
Both,
but probably both.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think there's so many layers to it, and I think that this is a movie that will be etched into the annals of feminist and queer theory because of it. But like I was saying early on, I think that the characters could I think it's pretty clear that Paloma is like attracted to and admires Selah, right? But in that scene where they're like explicitly talking about sex and Selah's like, "Oh, I've never done it. I'm just not interested in it." That also seems
why
fake.
would I want to do something that's going to make me cry in the bathroom?
Yeah, which is a great line, by the way. But
and then she cries in the bathroom later when she breaks up with
Jerome.
Jerome.
Yeah. But I think it's like part of that also felt like manipulation because it felt that she was feigning more innocence than she's actually than she actually cares about in order to make herself approachable.
Interesting.
And then at the same time, again, I think it's like anything that could at all be controversial or taint me, I'm not going to break with. So even if I am actually attracted to this girl, it wouldn't really look good for me in the long run. And so I'm only going to admit it in as much as will benefit me because I can use her after it, you know? And so there's all that stuff swirling around that I don't think like makes the movie better or worse. I just think it makes it more rich in that particular relationship. I think that's the most developed relationship in the movie for a lot of, obvious reasons. And I just like, that's another thing that I would have hoped to see is a more clear, like we see her part ways with Maxie, and then obviously they kind of like have to come back together because of what happens to Paloma. But seeing Paloma make the decision to be like, no, you're an evil person and I don't want to be like you, could have also been compelling.
Yeah.
but again, like that ambiguity is good, and it leaves the room for whatever this TV series might be.
Right.
And I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think it's going to be these same characters? Well, I don't think Jharrel would be affordable.
I have no idea.
I think Jharrel is going to get that sweet Marvel check in about 3 months and is going to fly up.
More than likely.
It's going to be in the X. I mean, since you said that about the TV show, I've just been like, I just have no idea how they would even do it.
I hope Selah. I almost hope like she's not in this show only because it's so much about her finding a successor. She's on the clock. That like if it's now a TV show where she's just there, I'm like it kind of ruins like the stakes of this movie. You know what I mean? Which is tough because the whole freaking movie is about her. But I think that's where the show could benefit.
Have the pilot. Have her graduate in the pilot or something, and then and then stuff goes down immediately. Yeah. And you could get a body double where it's like just her calves. It's her graduation cap from the back because it's not Lovie Simone.
You could call it the Spades and just make it about Celeste's character
or Haldwell. You could call it
Or I mean, I think there's a lot to plumb here. Like you could do. Because the idea, like, if we're doing the Godfather parallels, right? So this would be Godfather 1, right? Because it's her finding a successor, and at the end she finds, in Godfather, he finds a successor, doesn't try to kill his son. But here,
off of that, then in the sequel to this, we would have like a prequel part where we see what she did to Tila.
It'd be a parallel story. No, but I think you could just do a school-wide show that's like a crime, Snowfall, but it's
show the other factions doing literally anything. Please. How did Tarot tie up that guy that Paloma ends up beating the crap out of? Like,
she has runners. She has it's like the mafia. She's like go like in the beginning they show you they chase they have people coming from above and below. They corner that guy and they
fell down the north stairwell.
He's a real one for not telling.
It's a private school where they have like death squads of kids to hunt other kids and tie them up and interrogate them.
Bro, that's just a high school in
that happened to me, dude.
That's just a high school in Brownsville, bro.
True.
Get duffed up.
Well, let's rate it then, shall we, gents? Who wants to go I can go first. I'm gonna nice and easy. I'm gonna give it 3.5 Spades out of 5.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
I will give it 7.5 Fishtown. Is it even Fishtown? Is that the name of the place where Jharrel gets beat up? Yeah. Fishtown. I will give it 7.5 Fishtowns out of 10.
Nice.
I guess I give it like 4 scorpions out of 6 frogs. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll give it 4 tabs of acid out of
a bottle.
I was gonna say you'll give it all 9 digits of your phone number, so Lovie Simone.
Oh my god! Oh, wait, roll it.
Go back.
No, it's fine. I've planted it there for you. But
it's fine.
Those are our thoughts on Selah and the Spades, and that is Wes's Hail Mary pass. Let's take a break.
You can't see me, but I'm doing the Hail Mary.
Let's take a break and come back with Danny's pick. Haine.
Okay. Super bad, but it's French? Say no more. Right. So this is a ACAB dudes rock movie about a couple of fun, crazy kids who get into some mischief over the course of a night. And this came out at the height of French police protests. There was a lot of police brutality going on at the time. This is an independent film, very small budget. Mathieu Kassovitz. This may, I don't think, maybe not. I'm not sure if this is his freshman or sophomore feature.
No, it's his sophomore feature.
Okay, yeah.
He had a She's Gotta Have It-esque movie for his first
one. Very low budget, shot with like real people, real locations. I appreciate the way this movie utilizes its low budget. sometimes it just seems like they spent all their money on animal crackers, but here it's like very like valid low budget cinematography where like we have steady cams mounted to the front of a car, like cheap stylized things that really aid the film, black and white cinematography, very cheap film stock that actually makes this movie look really signature, really brings out some of the high contrast shots and like the cityscape and stuff, makes it seem very industrial and kind of surreal. I mean, we're going to spend about half an hour talking about the cinematography. The first thing I want to say is I took a cinematography class in my sophomore year of college. And day one, I show up. The room is dark. I had been late, as I was throughout all of school. I sit down, and my professor had the Criterion of Haine. I hadn't even heard of it. I was shocked, actually, by the end of the class that I hadn't heard of it, but a lot of these kids I had never even seen before. I had only known like a couple of them that were in the class with me, but he played the movie, gave a brief introduction, said, watch this and what you can do with a low budget and some ingenuity cinematography-wise, I mean, it's limitless. And the movie really does prove that. We sat down and watched it, and after an hour and a half had passed, the class got out. And we're all just like kind of talking to each other outside the building afterwards. Like, what was that movie called? That was fucking genius. That was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and I had never even heard of it. And I mean, I had a cinematography project later on where I recreated shots from this just because coming off of that first class, I was so obsessed with it. Like, I went home and bought the Criterion, and I watched it a few more times. Watched it again last night. I still love it just as much as I did. Sometimes it wavers with me when I rewatch stuff, but I think it's the same with you, Wes. I liked it just as much as when I first saw it. I still think it's so strong, so haunting, so funny, so well acted and creative and eccentric. But yeah, this is very inspiring for like low budget filmmakers. I mean, it's very well told and allegorical, and you love this cast of characters. And it kind of, I mean, I said this super bad thing flippantly, but similar to something like Good Time, where it's like these young characters and they're on the run, and it all takes place over the course of like one crazy night. I think that's kind of like a winning formula, because that always seems fun. You and your friends getting into mischief over the course of a night, and you're just getting into trouble all the way up until the sun comes up, and then you go and you get arrested or you settle down and nap or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, very effective movie, easily one of the best movies I've ever seen. This is in my top 10, if not my top 5.
Damn.
So what would you think,
Wes? I have a lot of thoughts about it, but Wes, read your
my
your
letterbox
first.
Yes, this first one goes out to Danny. It's from Karsten Runquist, who
my favorite.
It is a 5-star review.
Can't get enough of it.
And it says completely different film, but was very similar to Do the Right Thing in terms of structure. And I love Do the Right Thing. There are black people in that. No, he didn't say that. So yeah, this was pretty great. I've been handing out 5s left and right, but goddamn, these films I'm seeing are so deserving of it. I'm also going to give an honorable mention to the 5,000 reviews that said "F the police." Everybody thought that was an original. It was an original Letterboxd review.
Hey! ACAB. Get it? Because it's from the 90s, and I'm reviewing it now.
Another review from Grayson, which is a 4.5-star review that says nothing but hate, and I love it. I guess because the title means hate.
Yes,
the hate. I don't know.
Or hatred.
The best review, however, is from Entered the Void with a 5-star review that says simply "the best." Thank you very much.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
it's a clever joke.
Yes, I'm just gonna play this real quick because I feel like I'm going to. We've been bouncing around with the pronunciation, so I'm gonna play this from Google Translate and see if I can remember it.
It's Lain.
Lain.
My cinematography professor introduced this movie as Haine.
Yeah.
And two classes later, someone corrected him, and then someone else, a third person, corrected that person who corrected it. So the pronunciation of this movie.
Every French person in my film school for the first month kept calling it Lain. And I was like, they're like, have you seen Lain? I think you'd like it, Wes. And I was like, I don't know what that movie is. But I had seen it. I just didn't know. I'd been pronouncing it mentally Lahain. So,
La Haine is probably the closest English speakers can get to it. But if Wes and Zach don't mind, I'll go first with my initial impressions.
No,
this movie.
Are you about to say
this movie rocks? This movie rocks. Yeah, it is
stuff rocks.
It's like
there's ironically, but it is fun.
Yeah, no, it's so like I was really. It's been a long time since a movie has captivated my attention and held it for this long. And the only reason that I broke it up is because like I got home really late last night and I just couldn't stay up, but like I wanted to. And I'm looking at this thing and there's like almost every single shot. Almost every single shot is either technically, stylistically, or thematically impressive, and there are some that are like all three at the same time. It's like a feast for the eyes, but it's also this really rich story. And we've talked before about specificity versus generality in art. But I was watching this and like, listen, France was doing protests before it was cool, right?
They were cutting off rich people's heads pretty early in their
exactly. So like they're the progenitors of this. But when this movie started, I was thinking like, wow, how crazy that like looking at this right after all of the unrest that we experienced last summer in America. It was just so.
The archival footage that they opened with the reggae song playing over it.
The protest song there. Yeah, also some of the best needle drops in a movie ever.
Soundtrack. Also, there's just hip hop all over the American hip hop all over the movie.
Yeah,
and then some French stuff too. I mean, Danny, you were talking about Good Time, Superbad. But the movie that I was thinking about the most is Juice.
Me too.
I was watching this.
Me too.
And Juice actually came out in 1992. It's a few years older than this, but that's the movie that was one of the movies that Tupac starred in. It might have been his own. His only feature.
No, I think he has like 2 or 3 movies he did before. He died.
And he it's a very similar setup, but it takes place in Harlem. You have these young kids, and one of them, played by Tupac, is this like growing sociopath, and like. It's set against the backdrop of this like socioeconomic stress and everything, but La Haine goes further with it, and I really do love this movie. So I'm glad that you suggested it, Dan. We'll get into a lot more, but
I'll say one more thing. You commented on how every shot seems to be like a technical marvel. It's interesting because the story is that a lot of it was storyboarded, of course. But then Kassovitz had shown up to set like on the day in a few instances of principal photography and was just coming up with some of those amazing shots like on the spot.
Interesting.
Like some of those were not premeditated. They were just like it was just like him coming up with shit like while he was there. Justin, we were on a film set recently and I was given some flack because like while we were there, I was getting inspired and coming up with some new shots like on the spot, and people weren't happy with me about it. But stuff like La Haine showed stuff like this film shows me that is always a good thing. Like showing up and getting like fresh inspiration because you're on location for the first time and you have all these new ideas, and it's like, all right, guys, like I get that we're stressed and stuff, but like let's have room to dream. You know what I mean? If there's some extra time, let's try these experimental shots and do things different. I mean, this is a testament to how quality that line of thinking is.
Yeah. Zach, Wes, either one of you want to give?
Zach, go ahead.
Let's get the fresh perspective.
Zach, go ahead.
Let's do it. I really liked it. I think especially it was like the more time passed after I watched it, the more I liked it. Just like thinking back on it, and I'm not going into spoilers yet, but that ending was just like so perfect and so like I like you're expecting it and you're not expecting it. It's just it was. And just the way the 3 characters play off of each other is just like super great. You have these really 3 distinct characters. I probably have less to say on the cinematography than the 3 of you do because I think you guys all have more experience with that than I do. But I really appreciated like all of the shots that I noticed because there's so much to notice in that film. Like that reverse tracking shot I think that you guys talked about in the group chat was I was screaming. as it happened.
Oh, they used it to mirrors, like in the
Yes.
bathroom, and one of you can't even tell who's
Saïd
in the mirror.
is in the middle, and
Yes.
you have
He's at the
Yeah.
stall, and then there's two mirrors bordering him and the
Yeah.
two other subjects. I think one mirror is actually reflecting another mirror, and that's how.
yeah.
They
What it
managed
is they're they. Saïd is in the middle. Vince is in the stall next to him, but then they're shooting Hubert through the mirror. So they have him in the shot because they're shooting him with the mirror, and then that's what putting Saïd in the middle, which is where he is for the whole movie anyway. He's in between them, trying to keep them apart.
Yeah.
I think the first time it hit me that, like, oh shit, I'm watching something that cinematography wise is brilliant is when we first enter that like parking garage boxing ring.
Gym.
Yeah.
Bruh.
And the frame rate speeds up, it hits that slow motion. We see him just like jumping, and this is one unbroken shot. Like I noticed this actually just watching it again, because I thought it was like separate shots that were all brilliant, but it's actually unbroken. It's moving in, and then
On him
frame
boxing,
rate speeding up. He's like training, and then the camera does like a whip pan to the poster to show like the marquee of like the fight that's about to happen.
Yeah.
And it's all one shot, and it seems like three separate like brilliant shots with like different lenses, but they couldn't have changed lenses like in that one take. It's crazy.
Insanity. Insanity.
Yeah.
Wes?
Zach, were you done with your
Yes, that is it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start this from a less technical spot, which is like a personal thing, which is so in the summer before I went to film school, which is now almost 2 years back, I went to England and France with my parents and my sister for a graduation thing. We'd never been to that part of the world before, and we don't really take trips out of the country really. So we went to France and we spent one day there. And on our way back from France to England, we were pulled off a train by some Parisian police officers for holding the train doors open for my mom. And they were very scary. There's about 4 or 5 of them surrounding us, asking for our IDs, all that stuff, asking for our passports, and it was a bunch of us. And it was a very scary experience, you know what I mean? And it's an experience that if you're black or non-white, that's a pretty common experience for you. I've been interacting with the police because of my race, since I was 15, you know what I mean? But it was a scary experience that happened in France because you assume that when you're not in America, that won't happen to you, foolishly. So I watched that happen to me, and it was very, very scarring. And then on my way back, or maybe it was the day I got back, I watched La Haine, right? Wow. And it like blew my wig back, you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of the French cinema, you know what I mean? Like, but seriously, like a lot of the French cinema you're told to watch for school is Godard.
Yeah,
which is fine. Listen, look, I think Pickpocket's one of the best movies ever made. But I think I hadn't seen a French movie that had been engaging in a way with what we know happens in France, especially to Middle Eastern folks, to African immigrants in France. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't watched a movie that engaged with it. A lot of times when people are engaging with France in film, they're trying to show how beautiful the city is. Yeah. You know what I mean? And here it's a crime movie.
Industrial and very aggressive and off-putting.
And it's also very everybody compares it to Do the Right Thing because of structurally, but I think it's like actually much more indebted to like all of Spike Lee's work. Like it's very much like Kassovitz looked at Spike Lee's work up to that point and was trying to do his version of that, of his work. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It just really emotionally blew me back. Every time I watch it, I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times now. It doesn't get any, like it doesn't decrease in value. Like it just, it stays being
great. It's a raw power that you can't shake.
And it also is not interested in impressing you with violence. Like movies like this often want to show you how hard it is being the other. You know what I mean? Like it wants, it's voyeurism. You know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, you don't know what it's like to be black, so let me show you. And Kassovitz doesn't seem interested in that. In fact, what he seems interested in is like, he's actually really interested in that white boy. And like the fact that the white boy wants to help his friends and doesn't know how and keeps messing up. You know what I mean? Like that's what he seems to be really interested in. And that's like such an interesting way to enter that story, You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think we're going to go through why we think it's great, but I think it's the kind of movie it is, which is like the all in a day political film that like Fruitvale is, that like Do the Right Thing is. I think it's like one of the best. You know what I mean?
And going off of what you said, I want to make a point. Similar to my last pick, how Repo Man is very critical of Reagan America, but it doesn't go easy on punk culture either. This movie is it's very critical of the police violence at the time, but really it's critical of society as a whole. I mean, it opens with such a powerful like first image, the Molotov hitting the Earth as seen from space. About a society on the fringes. I mean, well, the black and white cinematography. I mean,
how did you do the Molotov hitting the Earth?
I don't know. I have no fucking idea. It's crazy.
And sometimes that's the magic of stuff, man. With movies, is like, how did they do
it?
The
black and white really accentuates it, and it came from a place of necessity. It was totally like a budget thing.
But it doesn't look that way. It doesn't. It's
no,
like
it's so purposeful.
It's almost like
gorgeous.
The form. It rarely happens this way. Like you have to get a truly great filmmaker where the form fits like the things you can't do.
The financial limits. Yeah.
What I was saying was like the kids. I mean, it's not like a biased thing where it's like, oh, they're really pure at heart, they deserve a better world around them. It's like, no, in a lot of ways, these guys are really self-destructive. These guys really don't think that far ahead. They kind of are constantly on the defense. You know, they're in this art gallery, and they get these two cute girls in a place where like they do want to like talk to them and learn who they are. But like Saïd ruins it because he's aggressive and he shows up and he's just like very off-putting. And they're like, well, we're trying to talk to you guys and you guys are being dicks. And then they go even further. And then they go even further and they break like one of the installations and they're like, "Yo, fuck, you suck donkey dicks," and like they get out of there.
It's so good.
It's not like biased to where it's like on either side. It's saying that this is, you know, I hate using society because like we've ruined that word.
We do live in a society.
We live in a society.
I can't take that word seriously more in like theory, but it is about like society on the fringes.
Yeah.
I mean, no
well,
one's
that
really in the right.
Yeah.
The quote that's on the DVD cover, "Jusqu'ici tout va bien." You know, so far so good. The idea of
whoa, is that French?
Falling. I was just reading it.
No,
I
don't worry
took 2
about it.
years
That was a
of
plug.
French. Shout out to Madame Hendrickson.
I actually at one point had an idea. I was talking to a friend of mine about who's a tattoo artist. I wanted to get that So Far So Good tattooed on my chest, but he informed me that would be really painful.
On your face.
Getting a full quote on your body would be
I think you should get the
painful,
3 of their faces on your chest.
No, it's just the quote.
No, but I mean that's such a they use it 3 times in the film. It's that parable about the man falling down the skyscraper.
Yeah.
It opens the film. It's repeated again on the rooftop, and then it closes the film. And I thought like
I love that.
I'm sorry, but, like,
I love that.
It means more every time.
I think what happened was they planned for when exactly the lights on the Eiffel Tower would go out. But Kassovitz must have said, you know what, when we are shooting this, the lights might not go out like right when we block this for, but we're going to keep rolling and you guys exit the frame and then we'll cut right when they do. And it'll seem purposeful. It'll seem like something that we orchestrated.
It's so chilling, dude.
Yeah.
The fact that he leaves and then the lights go out is just...
And it takes a few seconds.
When they yell at the skinheads, I had never looked this up before, but he says that this as a skinhead.
The skinhead is getting the crap beaten out of him.
But
it's the director.
I looked up the politician. I had never looked it up before. What the fuck is his name? Here it is. Jean-Marie Le Pen. He says Le Pen sucks or something like that. Le Pen was a French nationalist who had wanted to close the borders and not let in people of color. He wanted France to just be this homogenous kind of community where it's just like really he wanted just like French white people to preserve the cultural purity of France. So at the time, skinheads would have been big Le Pen fans. Yeah. So he called them "fuck Le Pen," like Le Pen's gay or whatever. He needs to say that, but like they go after them over him critiquing Le Pen.
I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that. I had no idea about that, but I do know France is known for being extremely nationalistic
Yeah.
and anti-Islamic. The thing I really, and you hit on this, the thing I really liked about the film, the first time I watched it, is that it's not attempting to do anything other than just to give us these three boys. You know what I mean? Like it's not trying to do anything. It almost feels like it's, if at the end of the film you're like, I've just hung out with these three guys and I like them, then that's it. Like it's not trying to give you any kind of political.
And then there's that final scene.
Well, that's the thing. That's why the final scene works so well, is because you've gotten to know the three of these guys so well. Like you even know what sets them off. Like you know what gets them upset. You know the dynamics between the three of them, and it's not even like he's ratcheting you up for them to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which spoilers, the ending is the ending. But he's just like letting you sit with them. Like even with Fruitvale Station, which I think is an incredible film, you from the beginning you know Oscar Grant's going to die. Like you see the footage at the top, you're like, oh, he's going to die.
Yeah.
This never,
and because he was a real,
and because he's a real person. But even like Do the Right Thing also does it where it doesn't telegraph to you what's going to happen until the end.
No, that's true. I guess you do think going in that they're going to have like an arc, and maybe they're going to
change.
Like part of a more organized way of protesting and fighting for like social change. But I mean, these kids are so short-sighted, and in a lot of ways, like the way they insult each other kind of reminds me of Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah,
like they call each other like ass monkey and like butt munch and shit like it's like Beavis and Butthead insults. And I don't know what I expected the first time I watched it, but I definitely didn't expect that ending. It's really like because it's funny because like the comedy is very surreal. You know, like the guy talking about how he was on like a cattle train in the Second World War, and him and his buddy went off.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
It's fucking great. Why did that guy tell us all that? Yeah. And then he leaves the one guy and he froze to death because he was too embarrassed to just let his pants fall below his waist and catch up to the train. The comedy is very like it's almost like a stoner comedy at some points, like when he sees the cow and shit. And then that ending is just it's so
a haircut.
Yeah, the haircut. Yeah, it's great. People, that's how people wear it in New York.
Really
that's
funny.
how they look in New York.
It's
people walk around with bald spots in New York.
It's like like where it's just like the two doofuses are just hanging out. And there's like a historical backdrop.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is like in a way it's like if the movie Beavis and Butthead Do America ended with Beavis getting shot in the face
by the police.
Or by a skinhead.
No, he was a police officer.
No, that was a plainclothes cop.
Yeah,
that was the one that he was the one that was looking at Vince.
Yeah.
When they were on the roof, he was giving him a dirty look, and then it came back around. But Wes, I wanted to pick up on something you said. First of all, thank you for sharing that story. Really great that like you watched this right after that. But to linchpin what I was talking about in Selah and the Spades with privilege, right? So I really think that what's interesting about the characters in this movie and the character of Vince is that he's like figuring out allyship. You know what I mean? And I think what's fascinating is like because he's a white man, he's allowed to be anarchical in a way that Saïd and Hubert can't. Like he's allowed to say, "I'll just shoot a cop." Because like there's that freedom of expression and sort of recklessness is just afforded to him because he's a white man and his consequences for it probably wouldn't be as steep as it would be for them. Obviously, he's not in that scene where they're arrested for a reason. You know what I mean? Like he runs away, but also like thematically, it's so that
they wouldn't have gone after him to begin with,
right?
Even though
and
he was
we
the one
can
who was
show.
armed. Yeah,
100% right. For the whole movie, he's armed, and then it's like you have this him as a
extreme too. He gets stopped by Hubert from shooting the cop.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls the gun off. And without that interception, he would have been a cop killer very early on.
Yeah. And I mean the relationship between them is really interesting too, because Hubert, you know, he's the only one who's we meet some of Saïd and Vince's family, like Vince's grandma's sister, and Saïd's sister, but like actually being in the home and like, you know, when it takes a while for us to see Hubert's home, and when he's got, you know, mother, multiple siblings.
There's tenderness.
He's the one who and he's the one that wants to get out, right? So of course it's all the more tragic when it's heavily implied that he dies at the end because
or
he is,
Or you should.
or both.
Both.
Stand up. I mean, it's ambiguous in a way that I love because it could have gone in like a number of different directions.
Well, if Hubert doesn't kill that guy, then the cop is going to kill Saïd too.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's how it goes.
Because he has to.
And ending it in like a Western standoff like that is when typically that's something you tailor your movie around is like a huge
right.
sentence. That's powerful in and of itself. It will because it's saying there's no ending, there's no closure to a society that's like this.
Well, no, the ending is really impactful, and one of the things I was also thinking about, with that archival footage up top. I mean, you can compare it to any number of civil unrest situations, but it did feel very like Rodney King-esque as well. But the director even talked about how this movie was inspired by an actual French person being shot by police. I believe he was an immigrant or a child of immigrants. A young Zairian, Macomb Mbole, was shot in 1993, killed at point-blank range while in police custody and handcuffed to a radiator. Apparently, he was angered by Macome's words and had been threatening him when the gun went off accidentally, much like what happens to Vince at the end. Who is not the character. It's so interesting that he's the one who dies, because I mean, I guess there's so many different ways that they could have gone with that, and it could have been impactful either way. But it's like if Hubert or Saïd died as a result of his recklessness, that also could have been a choice that they made. But the fact that he goes first and like he's the closest thing they have to, I guess, a shield in terms of like between them and the police, that's really like, oh, you know what I mean? And it's again, it's so shocking. Yeah. As far as favorite moments overall, a lot of it is just tied into the cinematography, just shots that I'm like, wow. With Vince boxing in front of the TV set, of course.
Oh my god, that was the shot that I recreated for one of my
friends.
It's an amazing shot.
It's gorgeous. There's this like rotating this pan around Hubert when I guess it's when he gets arrested, and it pulls like into, you see the interior of the police room, and it has like vengeance graffitied on the wall behind all the cops as they're looking at him.
I like the instances of graffiti in this. There's like the Nas lyric, the world is yours, and then he says it changes the one.
He changes it into the world is ours. Yeah.
And this is still when graffiti was like a criminalized act and not something people could buy for an art gallery for $.
Dude, remember 5 Points in Queens, Brooklyn? Like the Queens, Brooklyn kind of, it's like that building that was like a giant graffiti edifice. Like it was just all, you could see it on the Q train, I think, when the Q train comes. Was it the Q or maybe the N? But anyway, they bought, that building was bought, and I think the graffiti was removed. It's always kind of.
Oh, really?
Huh. That makes
sense. Or maybe it was just bought.
Did you say it's in Queens?
I think it's, let me hang on. It might be in Brooklyn, but it's like if you're heading toward
Brooklyn does
Jackson Avenue, Queens.
No, it does.
Brooklyn does very kitschy graffiti stuff. The huge mural of Biggie Smalls, and all the white people take selfies in front of.
Well, the thing about that is, like, I feel like we're kind of going off on graffiti, but I guess graffiti is important to this film. Like back in the day, like all things, like graffiti was a way for like low income, like folks in New York to like express themselves, and you could get arrested for it. You know what I mean? Like you could go to jail for graffiti, and like Basquiat used to do it secretly. You know what I mean? Like and tag it with like a different name, like Samo, I think was the name. So like, and then it blew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and now it's a gentrified activity. Yes. You know what I mean? Which is like, I'd be interested to see Kassovitz return to this world now and just have it be in the same world, maybe different characters, but just the same world, to see how things have changed. You know what I mean? Because even Spike Lee haven't, you know what I mean? Because Spike does Red Hook Summer, which is more or less a child film to do the right thing that takes place in the same area, but 25 years later. You know what I mean? So I think I would be interested in like what his follow-up to this would be. And since he made this movie, he's made more studio oriented films.
I was going to ask, what else has he What else has he
Gothica's a
done that you guys
trippy
know about?
fucking movie,
My
dude.
teacher wrote that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I watched that as
Yeah.
when I was really young on HBO, like late one.
Gothic is a strange movie.
It's fucking
It's a
brilliant.
Kassovitz
Which one?
movie.
Gothica with Halle
With
Berry?
Halle Berry
Yeah.
and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, it's Kassovitz.
Robert
yeah.
Downey Jr.'s in that?
Yeah.
Oh,
That movie's horny
Wow.
as shit.
But you know what's strange? I
BDSM.
was just telling Danny about this movie, and maybe I'll put it on the morgue at one point. I think the true film that is like the partner film to this that comes out years later is this movie called Nocturama, which is about these mostly non-white French teens who like bomb a building and then like hole up in a mall to escape the police. And it's a very similar like funny to not funny to funny vibe as this one, and addresses similar like ideas. Also has a lot of rap music in it. Maybe this will end up at some point. I don't know. But I don't know. Going back to the film, I feel like one thing that we haven't really touched on yet that I think is kind of more or less like super vital to the movie is like the way the film kind of flows. You know what I mean? Like it goes from the pacing. Like it kind of goes from the projects in the first 30 minutes, then they go to Paris in the second 30 minutes, and then they're kind of coming back from Paris in the last 30 minutes. And the way it's structured, I think, is really
which
tight.
is my favorite act. I like it goes like Act 3, Act 2, Act 1. It's like the movie progressively gets more and more kind of addictive. Like if I had turned this off the first time seeing it in the middle of Act 3, I like wouldn't be able to like continue doing my day to day until like I figure out how it ended. You know?
Yeah.
That third act.
You're saying that the
absorbing
the absorption tactics of the movie are like backloaded in a way, like all the more engaging stuff comes toward the end.
Because they're having fun and stuff, and they're doing petty crimes and shit, but like they are alone in a territory that's pretty much unfamiliar to them,
hostile,
where they're not really acclimating that well, and they're picking fights and shit. And I mean, when I first saw this and they missed the train, I was like, okay, so that means they're gonna die in Paris. Like that was their last bet to like get like a Blair Witch thing when they show the car for the last time as they're backing up in the woods, and it's like that's the last time they will ever see that car, is what the movie's telling you. That's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah.
You know, they do go home, but I mean that last act is like it's really funny and stuff, but it's also like anxiety inducing because it's like they're having such a good time, and this is like an aggressive like semi-realist film, like what's gonna happen here, you know?
Yeah.
But instead
the car, that was
terrorist segment kind of crescendos in them taking the white nationalist and almost killing him.
It's like the party segment, like an all one like super bad Booksmart movies that are like all in a day movie with like 2 or 3 guys or girls trying to get to a place. Like the Paris segment is where the party would go structurally in those kinds of movies.
That's where like they lose the virginity.
Yeah, and then it goes wrong, and then you know, so
he knocks out Emma Stone.
He hits Emma Stone in
Superbad
the
is so
face.
good, guys. It's not just a dumb comedy. Superbad is actually a really good movie. That's my take. Feel free to disagree.
I haven't seen it.
I think it's a good movie.
You haven't seen it, Zach?
No.
Oh, I thought that would have
Really?
been. Yeah, I missed a lot of those like high school. I haven't seen it either, but I missed a lot of those high school. Like, stoner
Wait.
I
movies.
missed those, yeah.
I might bring up
talking about
childhood.
Superbad's good.
I might actually bring it on because I do
It's
have
a good consensus pick because there's a lot of people who know it.
Have you? I think Alfonso Cuarón or someone was like, why didn't they kiss at the end?
Superbad?
Yeah, because at the end of Tu Mamá
because he's
También,
like, I love my best friend. I just want to scream it from the rooftops. I love my best friend. That's such a cute scene.
he's like, why didn't they kiss at the end? I'm like,
That movie
well,
sold me on
Spoiler alert. huh?
dude. I was sold on
Sorry.
Jonah Hill.
Spoiler that they don't kiss, guys.
I was sold on Jonah Hill and Michael Cera like forever because of Superbad. They've done flops. They've had flops like every year since. They've done good stuff.
Jonah Hill has.
Yes. Well, I think Michael Cera has.
He has Scott Pilgrim.
He's in Twin Peaks.
He has Scott
so-
Pilgrim.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, is he? Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Arrested
Michael Cera's in
Arrested
season
Development.
3 of Twin Peaks.
What came for? I don't know what came
Yeah, I
first.
mean, it's Superbad, super powerful. We should probably circle back around.
Let's
Yeah,
get back
back-
to it.
That's the movie
Back to the
we've been
movie we're
talking
talking
about for the
about?
past hour. Yeah.
Is there anything else you were interested in talking about? With this one?
I don't know. I mean, do you guys? Are there any weak parts for you guys?
No, I was just gonna say I really like when we were talking about the comedy to anxiety inducing scenes, like the car scene. You know what I mean? Like that was really funny when they were like, "Wait, I thought you
Your wife
you
left.
were."
What? That's not a fucking. Get out of here! And then like Saïd actually ends up being that guy's friend.
Yeah, exactly. And like talking about who knows how to drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
You know,
how
like that-
eccentric every like C tier, not even like side character, like random character that shows up for a scene, like they're always so eccentric and funny, and like they always steal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the way he writes those like one-off characters for certain scenes in this.
Yeah, it was
Absolutely.
hilarious, and then at the same time, I was also like, I realized that we're nearing the end of this movie, and I'm expecting something terrible to happen. So that's another scene, you know, when he's like knocking on the window, and he's like, "There's a cop car driving up." I was like, "Oh shit!" And so it's just I feel like there are a lot of moments like that where they escape.
They're having so much
Sorry,
fun
go
in
ahead.
Paris, and this unfamiliar is just like causing mischief that they completely forget about their friend in the hospital, who they later learn while they're holed up in that building. I'm not sure what that. I think it's like
Another
a shopping
great
mall.
scene, yeah.
You see on the news that he's died. And while they've been having fun and goofing off and trying to take their minds off of the protests and stuff, and you know the war zone that they're living in, like their friend dies without them, alone in the hospital
because they can't get in. They can't get into the hospital.
And that's what we've been waiting for. Yeah,
No, go ahead, Zach.
No, go ahead. What? Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say, and that was another great moment because that's the whole thing that we're waiting to see, right? We're waiting to see, you know, like if this guy's gonna die, and then that leads Vince, you know, to kill a cop. So that was another great moment. And just like
imagine that
exactly, and we pan to his expression, and he's just like, you know, resolute. It was great.
Something about this scene, again, talking about the cinematography, but I got to go back and watch that featurette that I sent y'all on Instagram. And I guess it's just a trick of the lighting, but his fingers literally look like the barrel of a gun, like toward the end of his fingertips. And it's insane how they do that. I guess just the way that his fingers are outlined and everything, it looks like he's morphing into a gun.
I love those surrealist elements that are just like kind of there. And kind of give the movie this otherworldly feel in addition to the industrial aesthetic. But like him seeing the cow, and nothing ever really comes from that.
I love that stuff.
It's just things that seem to be invading the reality that don't really belong there.
I stole the cow bit for a screenplay I was writing because I'm a faker. Yeah. But
hey, no, do it.
You just steal and say you're sampling. That's what I always say.
So you're remixing, like old QT.
But yeah, I mean, are y'all ready to rate it?
Let's do it.
Because I know what my rating is.
I mean, it's giving this anything
immortal.
Yeah, giving it anything less than that is like a crime. It's one of the best movies ever made, and I'll die on that hill. I mean, damn sure, but I don't think anyone can convince me otherwise.
It's my first immortal. I think the fact that I turned this movie on and I was like, oh wait, when did this come out? Is like immediately a sign that it's timeless. In its delivery. Literally the only part of the movie that I felt like that was weird was like there's one edit where Saïd is calling out for Vince to be woken up, and then we cut to him tap dancing for a little bit before we cut to him.
Oh, I love that.
I think it just shows why
he was that threw me.
It shows why he was exhausted from the night before.
Oh, because he was. Yeah, okay, got you. I didn't understand that that's what that was supposed to be.
Himself in the parking.
I just thought it was a dream. I thought it was a dream.
Or but that was the only part, because then there's really cool transitions sonically and visually, but like for one, you know, Vince, like when he's done shadow boxing on the back, he slaps it, and then we use that to cut into the next scene. That loud bang, just really cool technical stuff, really great acting.
The gun being stored in the microwave, and then you hear like a pop, like something exploding in the microwave.
Yeah,
like it'll make when you put tinfoil in there.
Have you watched it?
And I'm a little sad that at least on the international stage, I haven't seen as much from Hubert, Koundé, Saïd, Taghmaoui. I mean, Saïd just kind of, he gets cast as like the eccentric foreign dude in,
he was in Wonder Woman
action movies.
He was in Wonder
John
Woman.
Wick.
He was. That's crazy.
John Wick
very
as well.
Strange that those two guys, because Hubert was Kassovitz's guy for a while. Like he kept showing up in movies, and then like I just haven't, like someone cast him as like a dad. Like please, someone put him in an HBO show. He's so good.
Yeah. And of course, you know, no disrespect to Vincent Cassel, you know, he's fantastic, but it's just like I would have liked to see.
He's kind of the poster movie.
He is. I want to see more from all of them.
In the mirror doing that.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, it's immortal for me.
Yeah.
Cool. Zach, go ahead.
Exactly.
I'm gonna give it a. I'm gonna bury this. No, I'm just kidding. I'll also give it an immortal. I think it's great.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's
You guys are
really
making
all I
up
have
for
to say.
trashing my repo man.
Yes.
No, I enjoyed this movie more.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think there are a lot of things that I'll appreciate upon another rewatch. Probably more cinematography things that I probably just don't have as keen of an eye for. But like I just think like the build, like the payoff of the movie is just like so worth like every scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. Wes, bring us home, man.
Oh man. I'm gonna. I feel weird about giving 2 immortals 2 weeks in a row, but I'm gonna give it an immortal. I mean, I may as well just be honest about it. I was gonna be like, maybe I'll.
That's a cynic of the show.
I don't know. I think it's. I think it's really great. I think it's the only. It's the only film that is attempting to synthesize Spike Lee that doesn't feel weird. It is. It reminds me a lot of a hip hop album. Like it feels more like Good Kid, Mad City than it does anything else. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love the way it looks. I think it's one of the only movies that is like recently shot in black and white that doesn't feel like it's trying to be pretentious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think this is like a great film, and I think other white filmmakers who are trying to make movies about racism, please do what
Take notes.
he does here, please. I beg. Please, no more of your terrible.
I beg.
No, I think this is an incredible film. I think it's one of those films that when we get old enough to start teaching film, our students are going to be frustrated that we keep bringing this one up because it's so good.
Dude, and by the way, have you seen?
Better than Citizen Kane, bro. Come on,
I'm gonna be honest. It is, but it is.
It is better.
It is. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna blow up this.
Them both multiple
I'm gonna
times.
blow up this podcast right here. Citizen Kane is mid. It's mid.
I haven't seen it.
All right, mid. All right,
That's
it's
fair.
fine. Come for me.
Dance. I don't know about that.
It's pretty good. I want more movies to be shot in black and white, guys. I'm the odd man out. And I'm fine with that. I think black and white cinematography has a lot of great potential.
I agree. Because
black
I
and white
think what it
cinematography
allows you
is
to do.
beautiful.
Sam Levinson.
It's gorgeous.
Sam Levinson. If you're listening to this, he does not mean you. I need you to never do that again.
Well,
please.
Zack Snyder did release the black and white of Justice
It's
League.
really reserved for stuff.
That's a joke. That's a joke. Please.
Pretentious.
Yes, that's the
because I think even like certain comedies that are in black and white, it kind of adds to them too.
What I will say though is the upcoming Denzel Washington Macbeth movie, aka the greatest movie that's hasn't been released yet, will be in black and white.
Nice.
Hey,
so I take back everything I said for that one movie.
I just think it's a beautiful stylistic choice that can add a lot to your film.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, Dan, just to support what you were talking about. My brother's a photographer, and a lot of times he shoots in RAW, so the pictures come out black and white. Doesn't mean the color's not there, but you just have to choose to develop it.
Pull it out.
And I think what that allows is color can distract sometimes, but what black and white does is it forces you to rely on the lighting and the composition.
Feels very raw,
and really make a beautiful image. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I'm agreed. I think that it can be used really well. I do have my pick for next week, and I'm doing something a little different. So I've been thinking a lot about the personal picks, right? Because obviously we say that we want to help people expand their cinematic horizons, and I was like, well, maybe I should step out of my comfort zone too and watch something specifically for the purpose of bringing on this show. So this is not a movie that I had seen before, and I still haven't finished it. But this movie's called Brick.
Starring Kevin Bacon. Oh, Brick!
No.
Oh shit, dude. Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson's first feature film.
That movie's great. Yeah,
it's been a decade since we watched that.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, and it's and I've already purchased it for us to watch on our YouTube channel.
Hey,
you are just the sweetest.
You man.
And yeah, I think it could pair really well if in all likelihood that we talk about Spiral as the consensus choice next week. So that is my pick.
Very exciting.
Oh, because of the detective.
This is a Joseph Gordon-Levitt podcast. I think he's the.
It also is that, yes.
Sponsored by.
Well, guys. In addition, I mean, this would have been one of my picks eventually, regardless. But I mean, you guys got to watch the first Saw
movie
to get ready for Spiral, so you know what's going on. You know what this Jigsaw.
We have 3 movies for homework.
Who's this Jigsaw guy?
Sorry, man. Zach, it is.
Homework. When am I going to have time to watch YouTube videos? spoilers.
No, but it should be a fun episode one way or another. But that's going to do it for this one, and we thank you graciously for paying us a visit in this humble mortuary. If you like what you heard, check out our back catalog on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and the Podbean app. Rate and review the show where you can. Follow us on socials at the Media Morgue, and consider supporting us on Patreon, where we have tiers for early episode access and other bonus content. Until next time, Wayward Movie Watchers.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mwah.